Today I have a clip I'd like to share with you guys. Apparently Trump is marching on with his racist ways, as have most of our presidents, but he's in his own unique way making a lot more noise than most. It's a very interesting clip because it's very controversial. It's about history. And for a president to have a claim or have any type of control in history is it feels weird, but it's something that's been going on uh, our whole existence under the United States. It's in a historical sense. We've all been manipulated into believing a certain thing, and if you get into a conversation about history, it depends on who you're talking to. You could agree 100% depending on where you were schooled or what you believe in and even what race you are. So it's no surprise that eventually Trump was going to get to it. I don't want black people to make any more noise or be any more upset about this than any other race. I think the Native Americans they're talking about, I don't think they're going to do anything to the Holocaust exhibits or any part of their history, obviously. And it's nothing to be mad about. It's nothing to be upset about. It's something to learn from. It's something to pay attention to for damn sure. But we're going to get into this clip and we're going to learn something from this together. We're going to grow.
This week, Trump signed an executive order titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History, an order aimed at eliminating what President Trump calls improper ideology from the American historical narrative, including at our museums, national parks, and monuments. The executive order reads in part, over the past decade, Americans have witnessed a concerted and widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history, replacing objective facts with a distorted narrative driven by ideology rather than truth. Our nation's unparalleled legacy of advancing liberty, individual rights, and human happiness is reconstructed as inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, or otherwise irredeemably flawed. The order focuses on the Smithsonian and claims that the museum system's telling of America's history is a, quote, distorted narrative. The Smithsonian is made up of 21 museums and a national zoo. It's the largest museum complex in the world. Most of the museums are located in Washington, D.C., along the National Mall.
I think going to Washington, D.C. and being able to visit the Smithsonian, going to see the Smithsonian is one of the best reasons to go. To the visual artifacts and the narratives and the literature that is stored there. It's something to behold. But Trump right now is doing in essence what Kamala Harris and everyone said he was going to do. You know, pretty much try to reshape the country. And I'm not so sure that I'm buying on the reshaping. I just think that he's accentuating more of the racism and accentuating more of the ideas and beliefs that some were core beliefs of the United States, and they just happen to be old and dated, and through the modernization of the world and our relationships with other countries, a lot of that stuff is irrelevant and not relevant at this time. But he's trying to resurrect old times, taking us back to a very dangerous time in our history. But I look at it as a positive moment for us to grow and learn from what is he trying to do, and to be the president, the sitting president of the United States, and have a complete Republican Congress behind you, not slowing you down on any front. And then where are we as a country? Should our Democratic leaders be disarming us when they're in power by telling us everything is fine and the country isn't racist and like, whew, glad we got over that? And then you lose an election, and then here we are up to our neck in, racism and us being related to everything that this man is doing and how it's going to affect us in the most negative and worst way. So I just don't feel we were ever given an opportunity to be set up to flourish in any way once we were released from slavery. So, what are we supposed to do? Uh, you know, uh, get up in arms, be upset, be pissed off, and get Trump's name dragged into the mud to the point of where he's unelectable or thrown out of office or impeached or assassinated or whatever the heck is going on in the Democrats' minds to happen to that man. But once it happens and they're back in power again, then what do we have? Are they going to restore the Smithsonian to what it is today so that everybody can go back to what we were doing, being comfortable with the lies? Or are we going to start teaching history the proper way in the United States of America completely? And in our school systems, not only in our museums and amongst our general population and the way we speak, and not looking at history the way the United States is impressing it upon us. It's a horrible thing, and then they want to know why we have the issues in this country that we have. When young white kids look around and say the N word and dislike black people and don't really know why, but they know that the way their parents treat them and look at them and respond to them is something going on. They know their dad is a prominent person in the business or in the industry that he runs in, and he knows the level of treatment of black people within that. These kids see it every day. They hear their parents talking at the table, and it's just a normal conversation. And we as black people have them. Things come out at the dinner table when people are talking. It's just normal in our household. It just is what it. I ain't gonna sit here and lie and say it ain't. It is, but it happens on that side, and it's more damaging because it's put in a way to make folks hate, dislike, oppress, as opposed to on our end. I feel that we're being told how to protect, look out for, duck and dodge, and understand the oppressor so you can navigate the system that he has built for us to live within. That's the way I looked at it. I don't. My mother and them never said nothing hateful toward white people in a strategic way. Like when you see one, sneak up behind them and get an empty Coke bottle. And they never gave us any kind of attack instructions. It was just informing you to the best of their ability what to look out for. And when you look at it, at the way we were taught and the way we were armed as children growing up with the information that we were given, we were just basically uh, given enough to survive, to not die immediately, to be able to be okay in this system, not to thrive, but to be okay, just to be able to get pulled over by a police officer and survive that, or to be able to get through a shoddy high school education, maybe a junior college, maybe a university, but because of your blackness, still be kind of on the scale, grand scale of things, kind of mediocre or below that in life compared to where you probably should be because of your hard work and your intellect. But we are so okay with the comfort that the Democrats agree is fine for us, and the history that the Democrats agree is fine for us, that when this guy comes in and ups the ante a little bit, it's like, oh, no, 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 you're going too far now. Well, to me, any is too far. And they've gone too far by undereducating us and miseducating us through institutions in the government like the Smithsonian that should not be connected directly to the government unless it's just by funding, if that's needed. There's enough billionaires, there's enough millionaires who should care, but who probably don't. But there has to be a way for these institutions to be independent so that Trump can't come in and say, oh, we don't want black people to know about slavery because we already do. But they don't want their descendants to learn more and more. They want it to get less and less. So they'll be looking at us like we're nuts. Like these broke black ignorant folks expect us to give them reparations for what? You know what I'm saying? They can go to the malls that we go to and buy the clothes that we buy and blah, 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 because they don't get it. They don't understand that being given jobs and being given opportunities and access to housing and access to everything, even when you're at your lowest as well as at your highest, is privilege. It's a wonderful privilege that they enjoy and don't really understand they enjoy because it's just inherent. It's something that it just is. And our kids don't understand that. So we get mad and we want to fight because Trump wants to miseducate us more than they already are. And our response should be what? Let's think about that and we'll get back to our response because I think we absolutely have to have one and it has to be appropriate.
So directs Vice President J.D. Vance, who is on the Smithsonian's board, to work with Congress to withhold funding from exhibits or programs that, quote, divide Americans by race. And it singles out the National Museum of African American Culture, African American History and Culture, and it prohibits the Women's History Museum from undertaking measures.
That's another one too that we gotta be careful. Is that they're gonna say Native American exhibits and museum. They're gonna under the Smithsonian. They're gonna say the women's fight for rights, Smithsonian exhibits and museum. But they're when they go deep, there's gonna be on the the black story, the black people, the slavery, the oppression. I mean, look at our history in this country and what it must look like. And I've never got to go to the Smithsonian in D.C. and I've been there twice, but on business and visiting more of the I guess congressional buildings and things like that in the Library of Congress. I was kind of on another mission at that particular time, but I would have liked to stop by the Smithsonian, but I've never held the Smithsonian in too high of a regard only because can be controlled, as you see, by the bureaucracy and the government, the president. And he can just say, oh, no, 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 no. I don't want to offend my people by teaching them anything about this slavery stuff. And he's right in a sense, because if you ain't going to do nothing about it, why would you want to poison your kids with that kind of truth and anger and piss them off only to know that, okay, we've done all this. This has been our history with these people and we're not going to do anything. We're going to just let them just languish. Is that just the way it's going to be? And they don't want that. And I don't blame them. You know, that fight, they got to fight the fight. And their fight is so their kids can grow up and not be feeling guilty or feeling bad and being educated the way they want them to be educated. But our fight is to educate our kids and ourselves and make it available for even their kids and themselves who want to come in and know and learn. But the institution has to be ours. We can't have them in control of our history, or we're not free. If we have to argue and fight with Donald Trump over how our history is being released in the United States, then we're not free people. Our oppressor still has control of us in a bad way. And we all know this to be true. Or this wouldn't even be a video that we could validly have. We'd be like, what is he talking about? We know what we're talking about. And it's being completely free and educating your offspring the way you feel they need to be educated properly through tales and stories and things that aren't in books, things that your family told you. When your family told you you had Native American in you, messed us up. We're like, what? We got Native American in us. We do. And then you keep looking in the mirror. You keep trying to look for a red Indian looking person in the mirror. And you're going, I don't know if we got Indian in us, you know. And then Ancestry.com and these they tell you don't. We need to get the scientists involved, and the ones who know the truth need to start speaking it without being punished for it. And unfortunately, as we see, Trump is obviously tying the government to historical facts and the ability to control people's thinking and education levels through the government and its institutions. So with us seeing this, what makes us feel when the Democrats were in charge that they weren't doing this? Just maybe not to the extent or to the degree that we felt uncomfortable with, that we were acceptable with that. So it's not any different to me. It's 0 to 100, 100 being the truth. It's either you lying or you telling the truth. You don't get to pick in between on that scale if 40% is cool for you to teach the blacks about their self and what came. And in most cases, we know, but we even have to speak in terms that make absolutely no sense when we know the truth, but amongst the wrong company or, you know, people who don't want to hear that kind of talk, like Donald Trump type people, makes them uncomfortable. It makes some black people uncomfortable because they go, "What? What are you talking about?" And it's I'm not a history major, but I know enough of our history to know that it didn't start in 1492 in Americas, but a lot of people believe that, and the Smithsonian is teaching that. But then in another part of historical facts, they'll show you where there were people who look like we look in America prior to people looking like what the native Indian looks like. The native Indian wasn't conquered by the Africans. The native Indian was taught by the Africans. And if they teach that, then everything else will fall in place because their kids will know who we are. We will know who we are. And it's hard to knock folks who didn't just get the name of being slaves dragged across the Atlantic and part of the imperialistic. That is, it was way more to us than that, and not like we were anything special, except we were are in our insides, things that obviously would let you know people who are capable of coming from Africa to America and didn't come here to conquer, didn't come here to overtake, came here to influence and to teach. And what they found, they made better. They didn't harm, they didn't crush it. So why would you want to hide a history of anything that was that normal and beautiful and what you would expect, instead of believing that introducing new people on new soil means war, it means conflict, it means domination, it means enslavement, it means pulling the resources out the land and hoarding them to yourself, it means terror wars, it means everything has to be in conflict and out of order, instead of using a higher level of thinking and not fighting like animals do out in the wild for their food. We can negotiate, we can communicate, we can share, we can relent, we can back down, we can understand. You know, no matter the level of education, the one with the most resources and the most education should be the most responsible for peace, because everyone else kind of has to listen to you more than you have to listen to them. And I believe that this planet is getting tight with the population, and the last thing we need to do is not get along any worse than we already are. But we have to carve a place out in the United States and not let Donald Trump get us so upset that we think that what we've been learning our whole time in this country has been gold and he's taking that gold. No, it hasn't been just Donald Trump. And to be honest with you, he ain't even the worst. But at this moment in time, this might be just the shot in the arm we all need to understand that it's some other things we can be doing out there to help our position here. And a guy like Trump might help us get there inadvertently.
That, quote, recognize men as women in any respect. Within the Smithsonian Museums, of course, there are countless exhibits that acknowledge our national achievements, our innovations, our American ingenuity, and our greatness. And there are also exhibits that acknowledge the dark or uglier aspects of our history, darker truths about American history. the parts of our past that are sometimes difficult to look at, things like slavery, like Jim Crow segregation, like the devastation of Native American people and culture. As uncomfortable as it may be to acknowledge the darker parts of our history, we cannot possibly celebrate our achievements without an honest reckoning of our mistakes. America is strongest when acknowledging all aspects of our history, the good and the bad and the complex. And yet President Trump and his allies want to narrow American history to look solely at whatever it is they deem to be our greatness.
But that's the way the country has always rolled. Let's just keep that in mind, though. And we have to be fair. Even the Democrats have a bit of an uncomfortable feeling about the truth. Or the Smithsonian could be full of so much more information that would let everybody know differently than what the Smithsonian. It's all propaganda. And it is important that the government control it, obviously, because it's under the control of the government.
Allowing a selective history to be told will not make us smarter, more united, or stronger. Erasing our history is a form of larceny, and stealing our history from us hurts all of us. Joining me now to discuss President Trump's decision to target the Smithsonian Museum is Martha S. Jones, professor of history at Johns Hopkins University and author of several important books, including her newest, The Trouble of Color, an American Family Memoir. Jones also served as an advisor to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. Also with us is Chandra Manning. She's a professor of history at Georgetown University. She is the author of Troubled Refuge, Struggling for Freedom in the Civil War. Thanks to both of you for being with us to discuss this very important matter. I'm going to begin with you, Martha. This Trump executive order claims that the histories told at places like the Smithsonian's African American History Museum will, quote, deepen societal divides and foster a sense of national shame.
And he's right. Because you've been lying to them all these years, they might, through just normal deduction say, well, what else have they been lying to us about? To not be completely honest about slavery, and I believe that most white people and most black people in the United States understand about slavery, but for it to be taught to you in a way that made it look more humane, or like you just had to go out and do 8 hours worth of work and, take a couple of breaks in between, drink some lemonade and then go in. It was a whole lot more to it with the things that went on in slavery. So for them to just think that we can bring these three ladies up and accentuate the black part of the story, which I would like to also bring out real quick. Pay attention to how the women's fight, those are women, and the Native American fight, they'll mention it, but it's that black fight that she just walked all the way through. Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate. I mean, the Native Americans had we know what the Native Americans in the books and in the history books look like, and they were able to make a treaty and work deals with them that to this day still hold. We don't have one treaty with them, not one. And that needs to be fixed. And then going forward, history can notate this and carry it forward. But up to this point, we've got nothing. And the best thing that any president or racist in power could do is diminish any opportunity for us to bring the truth out. Because it doesn't help his position. It doesn't help the position of white people in this country. And I can totally understand why a person like Donald Trump or any of our other presidents, including Obama, would fight to keep the truth out when they really know what the truth is and still aren't willing to let it out to the masses because they aren't uncomfortable with reparations. They are uncomfortable with reparations. They're uncomfortable with any kind of economic advancement for black people. They're uncomfortable with telling black people the truth about honestly just news breaking stories about the truth that we can look at and be like, whoa, did you hear what's on the news tonight? This came out in 1835, and it just stayed in the fabric of America. But the truth is, this is what that person really looked like. This is what that story really went like. And this is what we were taught in error intentionally. There's millions of stories like that over this country, over the shaping of this country that can be told and should be told. But will they be? Stopping Trump from reshaping the Smithsonian is a small part of our problem. It is not really that significant. It's a very well put together museum with a lot of money involved and a lot of thought and a lot of expertise, but not a lot of truth. It's missing a lot of facts.
What do you make of this kind of rhetoric that seems to make a case that acknowledging or examining the darker parts of our history will somehow make America more divided and more weak?
The first thing to say is that those words could only be uttered by someone who has never spent time in the Smithsonian's, has never spent time in the galleries, whether it's with school groups or families or dignitaries, national and international. Because when you spend time in the Smithsonian galleries, what you appreciate are the ways in which the exhibition, the interpretation, the programming, and more is a catalyst for extraordinary discussion across all kinds of difference, across all kinds of understandings and misunderstandings. So I think it reflects perhaps the administration's failure to actually engage with the institutions that they have now targeted. At the same time, I think it just underestimates Americans. It underestimates our ability to think critically.
It's not about the underestimating of the ability to think or learn or absorb or interpret or live under any of this stuff that they're trying to keep away. It will change the way white people in general look and think about black people. To tell the truth, that's just it. And I've been thinking my entire life about a trip to Egypt just to see the pyramids, to really see the scale, to really see that a group of people who look like me did something or was a part of something that we can't even explain. And then I started thinking, well, shit, why I got to spend all that money to go to Egypt? Recently, I've been rethinking, and I'm just going to go down and see those pyramids and those statues down in Mexico, because those were there before the people who are there currently and before their ancestors. But they weren't conquered. They weren't taken over. People were able to live amongst, share information, share knowledge, share farming techniques, share things that helped, not hurt, not take away, but enhance. And that's the kind of stuff that needs to be taught, because a person's spirit and religion and soul can make them easier to oppress than others, because you can be trusting, you can be compassionate, you can have a lot of feelings and things that disarm you and make you an easy target for a very aggressive group. And that's happened many times in world history. But it not only the Smithsonian and the United States, that's just a part of world history. World history needs to be taught properly. World belongings and items and artifacts need to be returned to their continent and to their people. There is no reason why anybody in Europe should have their artifacts and keepsakes held in Russia or held in China. If that was the case, that stuff should be returned to them. And England is probably the biggest culprit of this. Open up the vaults, open up the museums, and return the items that you've stolen. And that is beyond just what's going on here with the American story that we're trying to shape, because it morphed off of that story and into this story. And the bottom line is, if history was told properly, people would feel differently. People would look at each other and then look at each other again and go, wow, if I'd only known, or I thought you guys were just slaves. I thought you guys were just, gang members. Wow. I thought, if people really understood modern and current shaping of a race of people, as opposed to shaping them for positiveness and success, you shape them for down, 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 down times, down economics, down living conditions, down everything, just the bottom. Conditioned them to be okay with it, so that when they do get a little sunlight, or a nice little job, a little middle classness, maybe a boat, some luxury on the weekends, not completely working yourself like a dog, those kind of things mislead us into believing that we have achieved a level that we haven't achieved. Not as long as they're lying to you about your history, not as long as they're willing to believe that that's that. If you don't think it's that important, that's why they're able to do it, because they know it's important. They're manipulating it and touching it. And I refuse to allow everything that this man does to be accentuated by the Democrats about black people, but the benefit goes to all these other groups, like they did with the DEI, and they're going to do it with everything else, because everything really does affect the black race as a whole the most. But then when it comes to the reparation of it, we never get the biggest benefit. So with that in mind, the Democrats are going to have to start walking with us and working with us. And we are going to have to break away during this administration and go and talk to Donald Trump like a man. Let him get on the microphone. Let him get in front of cameras and say ignorant shit if he wants to. But if he has a message for us, if he's just completely chopping things, and some things that affect black people are falling underneath this, we need to talk about it. And we're not asking you to restore the Smithsonian to whatever it is you think you changed. We're asking you to don't even worry about it. We'll take it from here. We need our own institutions to be controlled by us. That's it. That's just it. That's the only way we're going to have things make sense for us. So no one else can shut it down. And if it's changed or altered or something new comes up, then we can enter it, and it's our keepsake, and not for someone else to come in and say, oh, no, we don't want them to know that. No one else gets to do that. And for us, it shouldn't be that way either. We are way too easy with the guarding of our education. And because without education, what do you got? What do you have if you don't understand who you are and where you came from completely? Not what they told you. And if you don't know, and if you never heard it, people can look and go, what are you talking about? It makes no, the more you know, and you can go so far back on every continent and find proof through DNA and through artifacts that black people were there. So no matter what they did subsequent to that, we have to be in that story. Our story has to be told in that story. How did we incorporate? How did we meet? How did it go? Where did the black people who were in the Americas go when Christopher Columbus and all the Europeans started coming over and colonizing? Where did they go? They talk about the Native Americans, or are those the Native Americans? It's some things that need to come out, and Donald Trump is going to help us to get them out if we take the side of black people and not the side of the other oppressor.
to debate one another when debate is called for, to synthesize the many kinds of histories that make up American history. I think Americans are more than capable of confronting hard histories in many places, including in the halls of the Smithsonians, and come out still feeling themselves to be Americans.
It doesn't matter what she thinks, what Trump thinks, or even what I think. Life happens, and the way it should go is it should be allowed to happen. No one should shield you or block you because they think something that they know or have absorbed or interpreted shouldn't be passed on to you in that form or at all. That's what the problem is. I think the American public, well, obviously, we can deal with COVID. We can deal with the bubonic plague. We can deal with a flood. We can deal with a whole lot of stuff. We can deal with slavery. So it happens. Now, once it's happened, how you pass that information down in the form of history and facts is where it gets real sketchy and dangerous. But that's the problem. Everybody want to put their spin on it or what they think people are able to. It don't matter if people are capable of it or not. We'll just have to have nervous breakdowns until we get strengthen ourselves. But we have to understand how things happened, when they happened, why they happened, and who they happened to. And then we can move forward and quit begging to go back to the other oppressor. Don't let Donald Trump scare you back into the arms of them Democrats. Let Donald Trump awaken you to the point where you're ready to walk toward him. You're ready to step to him and talk to him and get some stuff off our chests. Like men is what we need to do. We need to let them know that because you lock our black men up, we still love them. We still care about them. We ain't going to let you lock up a whole bunch of black men and make us believe that they're just inherently black people. We've eaten dinner with them. We know them. But with a lack of opportunity, you're going to fill prisons up with any race if that's what you want to do. So history needs to be taught all the way up to the minute, but we need to guide our futures and we need to tell our past, and we'll be all right.
Shadow, this is, of course, contextualized by the overall effort to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, DEI programs or practices, not just within the government, but throughout American life. And there's a broad assumption that this is something that will primarily impact people of color, people who are
And that's what I'm trying to say. It's always going to primarily impact people of color because we have the least, because they have done the least for us, because we've been given the most resistance and the least opportunity. And then when things happen, they break us out, and we can obviously show pain and all kind of natural emotions because it's really happening to us in real time. And they're sitting back praying to God that our whatever spill we give them works, and then we're the least to benefit from whatever fight we engage in. Unions, civil rights, LGBT, economics, anything you can think of. Being black will qualify you for a place at the bottom or the back of it. That's messed up. And the Democrats understand that and are doing nothing to change it. They just know that we're okay with that. And Trump isn't doing anything. You can't take somebody in last place and put them anywhere else. They're in last place. They're just reminding us we're in last place. That's all. Pushing us, slapping us around. He's reminding us of that. Hey, you're in last place. And the Democrats are like, what? Oh, that's bullshit. You can't be in last place. No, that ain't right. Well, we've been in last place with y'all. Well, ain't nothing changed. You just want to make it like it's his fault because he's the president now. But y'all wasn't telling us there was no big deals about lying to us about the information in the Smithsonian when Biden was in office, or Obama, or Clinton, or Carter. It's all right, but now it's not.
Disabled, people who are underrepresented in various institutions. But why should every American be alarmed about the idea of trying to create a museum system where Americans tell itself not a fuller story, but a much more narrow story about who we are as a country and where we've been?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for putting the question that way, because it's not a question of trying to tell a positive or a negative story. It's a question of telling a false story when we leave out the people who make up our past. And all of us should be concerned about erasing the parts of our past that create the history that really helps to define all of us. There is
It will define how all of us respond to each other. And she knows what she's skating around, and that she's educated historically, and she knows what's up. And it's very unfortunate that black people would rather be Democrats than know their own history, because you can't be a part of that party once you really understand that they have no good intentions for us. They don't have nothing good for us. They know that we can benefit them, or they wouldn't deal with us. But they benefit greatly from us. You don't ever hear the Democrats using the Native American community in its fight, do you? Do you ever hear that? Not at all. But they do have a treaty. They do have money coming from the government to them because of what the government did to them, the Native Indians, apparently. And what I like to know is, how in the hell can they have such a opportunity to go to the government at some point, because it's already flowing, and say, hey, you know what, we need you to open that spigot up a little more. You know, times is tough, but and what are you gonna say? No. They always are in a position of negotiation. They're always in a position of not being known as Republicans or Democrats. They're known as Native Indians. And I believe that black people need to push hard for that, so that people can quit trying to control our history and control us and control our music and control everything about us. We have gifted special people on this planet within the United States, and everybody's corporations want to control them. They want a piece of them. And it's like, one African American person can just turn, like Michael Jordan as an example, can just turn one corporation into, look how many people are eating of Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan's only worth a couple of $1 billion. And that sounds like peanuts compared to the amount of money that's being generated by that image of him and who he is, and the apparel that's being made in these slave wages in these countries around the world. All that needs to be reckoned. All that needs to be fixed. It needs to be more balanced, where some of these people can make better wages and for their earnings and all of that kind of stuff. But the United States of America can't be in a position to police that and to make that right. That has to be done on a cooperation of the world. And us as the United States, we got so many problems, and everything you think about, you can go on and on and on about it, because there's so much injustice and there's so much wrong going on. But everybody's pretending like everything is fine. If you're a white guy in the United States, and all you do is pay attention to what they got you paying attention to, you won't have one thought, or very rarely a thought, of black people in the United States of America, because they don't affect your life in any way, shape, or form. You might interview one and hire them, and you can go a whole career and not even ever work with one as a white person. It can happen, and it does. So we are the ones who are in a position to control our destiny, our future, and the way people look at us. And we need to stop relinquishing that, even to our friends, the Democrats. We have to take control and responsibility, because not only their kids are being misinformed and undereducated, but our kids as well. Our kids are better than that. They really do. So that when white people and, public institutions are teaching them this shit, they can at least respectfully let them know that we really know the truth. They might. All right. It happened to me when I was young, real young. I knew something about black history that I just knew what they were teaching was just completely wrong. And getting into it with the teacher about it got me in a lot of trouble And I did learn that right from wrong in that respect, but I knew what I was talking about was the truth, and I stand on it and stood on it and got in trouble. But black kids shouldn't get in trouble for speaking the truth. They shouldn't get in trouble for having an alternative uh, history than what they're being taught in school. And the teachers shouldn't be mad or punish them or call their parents in to talk. He disrupted my class because, but I do get it. But if we can all agree on the truth, not on your interpretation of it, not on your interpretation on it, but what the truth really is, then we'll be better off because of it. And then to let the chips fall where they may, and the kids will be frustrated and pissed for a little bit, but they'll get over it. They always do. Kids are strong.
There's no moment in the past that is devoid of people of color or devoid of women. There's no moment where all Americans agreed with each other. There's no moment in the past where there was no conflict. And all of us have a real stake in telling and hearing and thinking about that full story. And I really want to underscore what Professor Jones said about not underestimating Americans' ability and appetite for this fuller story. Americans not only are up to it, I think they genuinely want to know history and not a fairy tale.
And we should note that the National Museum of African American History and Culture is the second most visited museum within the Smithsonian.
It's a thing about history, though. I mean, everybody who looks into history or learns of history, it's a wonderful feeling to know that your ancestry is coming from a good place. You know, that your ancestry did something wonderful, left a mark on the world, or whatever. But that's what makes people feel good when learning history. It isn't a good feeling to learn some bad things about your history, things that in your historical past may not be something you want to just go around bragging about. But when it's known as fact and it's accepted as fact, and going forward in at some point in the future, it was an attempt made, or not just made, but it was resolved. You know, it was fixed to a degree as best you could in the place and the time that you're in, you know, in respect to that having happened when it happened. But when you're in a place to do something and what you choose to do is bury it and ignore it and pretend that it didn't happen, then you are taking on the same guilt that the original slave owners would have. And it'll continue instead of you getting that off of you by doing the right thing and not being in a position where you're hiding or shaking and shy. None of that. You dealing with it in the best way possible. Now, at this time, that's all you can do. In another 50 or 60 years, maybe they realize you should have done more. Maybe at that particular time in the existence of this country or within your resources, you couldn't do more. You couldn't do better. That was it. So you're relieved of anything because you did what you could do. If it wasn't nothing but living your life as a white person in the United States of America, without being without racially resenting against black people in any way, shape, or form, when you're in a position to not have negative thoughts and negative ideas and let that grow and get into other people. We all have that responsibility. But when you look at history for what it is, we have to accept it for what it is, but we can't change it by hiding it. We can only take on guilt and really, really immoral behavior by covering it up, as opposed to just being a facilitator of the truth, a teacher, and not tying history to the government's idea of their self or what they want to see when they look in the mirror. That's not the way history works. But unfortunately, in this country, that's the way it has worked.
institutions. It's one of the most visited museums in the United States and even in the entire world. Martha Jones, you run a program at Johns Hopkins called Hard History at Hopkins, and it examines the role that discrimination and racism have played at Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins, in this case, is looking at itself and in the wider city of Baltimore. Why is it important to look at this kind of thing, look at hard histories, look at the complexities in our histories for a city like Baltimore, but also for a country like America?
Well, what we found at Johns Hopkins is that as we have unearthed our history, as research has led us to new insights about our past, including the past of our founder, that it has galvanized and strengthened us as an institution on the one hand, which is to say that we have done a great deal of important work when, as Professor Manning suggests, we moved away from myths and we got down to our mission, our commitment, I think one we share with the Smithsonians, which is to frank and unflinching research on the one hand. But at the same time, what it allowed us to do at Johns Hopkins was to embrace this broader swath of our local community here in Baltimore City, a city with its own troubled history with respect to race and racism, and to welcome people into conversations that are hard, that are critical.
I just get pissed off, and it's my thing that and I knew it was coming, and it's upsetting to me because Donald Trump is doing what they said he was going to do. Okay, he is. Let's say that they said it, but if he can start signing a couple of executive orders and all of a sudden we get thrown into this frenzy, that's just the most upsetting thing in the world, is that we are that close to it, that it just takes the stroke of a pen or him. That is the thing that just gets me the most. Is it doesn't take very much for us to descend back into something that they say we were done with 40 years ago or 50 years ago even. But we weren't, obviously, because people tell us who are our friends on the Democratic side that all that's behind us and all that is done when they're in power. And then here we are 90 days into this guy's 4-year term, and all hell is breaking loose. And that's why I think we need to learn, if nothing else from that we have to control the things in our lives that are the most important and fight hard for them. Who is going to oppose you on you being the director and the curator of the museums and the institutions that affect what Black people in the country think? Wouldn't you rather have that responsibility than give it to the oppressor? Give it to two parties, no matter which one's in power at a particular time, that both oppose you? Which is best? It's best to control it yourself. Control that narrative, control the facts, control the history, and control the way your children are shaped and think about themselves. It's up to you, not them.
That are new to many folks. But my experience here, because like the Smithsonian's, we are here for the long haul, my experience is that our community and the fabric of our city is only strengthened by that intelligent, thoughtful, and critical engagement with the past.
Now, when we think about
She don't believe that. And what she's talking about is the past that they've been teaching us. None of them are mad that history in our history books and in our public schools is inaccurate. Nobody's upset about that. They're upset that Trump wants to take it further. What's the difference? Remember the scale, 0 to 100. Either you lying or you telling the truth. Ain't nothing in between. You don't get to pick. And that's what they're doing. Their comfort level is different than his. He ain't comfortable with it. He want Black people's history to look better if you're a white person learning it, so that you might think that slavery wasn't as bad as they say it was. Or when you say it, it's just a word, but it's not nothing that pops in your mind, where you start drawing pictures. So if that's what he's fighting for, that's cool. But that means we have a fight to resist that, but not on behalf of what they're trying to do as far as get us back to normality. We have to fight it on the front of change, complete change, and it has nothing to do with the Smithsonian. They can have that shit and let that executive order go through. Why can't we have an institution that is ours and that we can't control it and put and build it, and people will come? They will not go to that Smithsonian if we do what we really should be doing.
American history, it's often defined by revolutions. But we are, as a country, also defined by our evolutions, by the way we have changed. And it seems like it's harder to appreciate the world that we've inherited if we don't understand the complexities of the past. Chandra Manning, in a comment you made to the Washington Post, you said that, I'm just going to quote this to you, the executive order seems to suggest that if we allow anyone to hear the whole story of challenges that Americans have overcome, our nation will shatter. The American people are not so fragile as that. Is it important also to remember that, Professor Manning, that we're not just talking about African American history or Native American history, but we're also talking about the way certain immigrant populations from Europe were treated when they came here, the way women had to.
Yeah, but the way they treated them when they first came here was by giving them land and looking like them and treating them accordingly. And believe me, being an immigrant from Ireland or some of those places, they did have their little bumps and things like that, but they were not drinking out of separate water fountains, and they lived in their groups and their communities and worked together economically and worked it out into the fabric of this country, and were never enslaved.
Fight for the right to vote. All of these are evolutions that have created the world that we now live in, and don't we need to understand that?
I think we do. I think if everything was all perfect from the get-go, then there's not much of a story to tell. Then there's not much to understand about how people have come together to face and argue about and disagree about and overcome in the past. Nobody's story is well served if we iron out or erase the bumps and the
You don't have to conquer a land just because you just arrived. You can see what's going on. Oh, no one's here, and start building things. Or, oh, people are here. You cannot destroy what they've built. You cannot take their land from them. And I mean, it would be probably, a little different if they told you to get the hell off. But I mean, if they did, they probably foresaw something like this happening, like, where they're living on reservations or whatever, or confused, thinking that they only came here as slaves. It's just so much history in the Americas that is in museums but being misinterpreted, or in basements and not even being shared with the world, or just being suppressed. And it's really sad to think that in this day and age that can happen, but it can happen. You think we know we were slaves and that's all. No, it's a whole lot more to that story. It's a whole lot more to why a lot of the things that happened, and why things still happen the way they do. And why we're part of a political party that treats us the way they do. Who truly responds to black people differently than they do to any of their other constituencies. They just do. And that comes from us being descendants of slave and having the relationship in the same country that we're living in currently with them. It's hard to shake, and we need to help them. We need to help them shake it, because we're helping them kind of stay in that little comfortable sweet spot that we need to get them out of. And Trump is helping us by shaking him a little bit on his end. He's doing his part. And now we need to turn to them and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't want business as usual. We don't want you to fight and return us back to what we were doing. We want to go beyond that. We want the whole truth and nothing but the truth. We don't want you guys' version of the truth or ratchet it up a little more. We want to go all the way with it. Everything we know and we can confirm to be fact or research, then we want it shared in that context, and not what Donald Trump is trying to do, and damn sure not what the Democrats have been doing.
wrinkles along the way. And the reason why I don't think Americans will fall apart if they hear this story is because of the time that I've spent listening to questions from students in my classrooms, because of the times that I've spent with K through 12 teachers doing professional development, bringing to me the questions their students bring to them. And because of the time I spent as a National Park Service ranger, listening to the questions of visitors on their vacations who want to know.
Yeah, and you tell them some shit that ain't true, probably. You tell them what you know, which is probably not what they need to know, the truth. To be the person who just repeats because that's your job, and the United States government has you taking people into historical zones, and this part of the country was inhabited by was first, that's what they always say, was first inhabited by the Chickasaw Indian. You'd be like, whoa, really? Wow. But then if you really knew the history of it, it might have been inhabited by people that look just like you. And they just, the Indian tribe that they're telling you might not have been Indian, might have been black. When Columbus arrived, that's what he was describing. It got distorted because it doesn't fit into a narrative that benefits them. And it seems like, who cares? Oh, they care. How their children look at you and how their children think of you. They think of us in a way that is not accurate and not consistent with real history. And they still want to be around us, but at their comfort level and at their discretion. And we've been okay and complicit and accepting of that. And we need to control the distance and control the frequency of our interactions with them and the level. And we have a whole lot more power than we display. And it's because we don't know any better. We are relinquishing our power, and they know it, and we know it, and we can't stop it, but we need to. We got to figure it out.
They understand that people are complex and complicated creatures, and it just doesn't ring true to them that there was ever a time in the past where everybody was perfect and got along and had no disagreements. That just doesn't ring true to them.
I'm sitting here in Washington right now, not far from the Smithsonian. It's a time of year where a lot of students are here on spring break. The museums are full of people. It's a much beloved institution. I suspect the White House is going to hear from a lot of people who really enjoy the Smithsonian as it is today. Thank you both for being with us this Sunday morning. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you can go to the Smithsonian and other museums, public and private. I think museums are a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing to see the art, to see the artifacts, to see the writings, the displays. But you cannot take that stuff for 100% the gospel, because a lot of it is distorted. It's interpreted in their way and the way they want you to receive it and the way they want their children to receive it. They don't want them to go in there and see some recreated video of some slave master sneaking into the slave house in the middle of the night and taking one of the female slaves and raping them, or taking one of the male slaves and raping them. Who knows what the hell? You own them, or one of the kids. You could do whatever you want to do to any of them, and nothing no one could do, even though they know what you're doing. They owned you. That when that sinks in like that to most people, they go, you look at it differently. Down to serving them their every meal, through illness, through tiredness, through sickness, through whatever. You still had to perform. You still had to produce. You still had to do what you had to do. And I don't think that people realize the short time span of 160 years, and for us to be just 160 years removed, and to be just expected to get over it. And for the oppressors who expect us to fight against another oppressor on their behalf is ridiculous. They should be fighting him on our behalf. We should be able to sit back quietly and let them exercise some leverage that they may have that we don't, obviously. But man, we can't be getting too upset about this stuff that Donald Trump is doing. We need to start focusing and responding to it differently. Don't respond to the Smithsonian scare by trying to restore more lies. Let's respond to it by trying to do things completely differently. If the Smithsonian is willing to let us lead our exhibits, the things that are about us, that would be a nice thing. But otherwise, it'd be okay for us to do it ourselves 100%. We don't need anything that the Smithsonian has. They can't take who we are and put us and our living fluent life and history in a museum and keep it away from us. We are here to tell the story. We are here for people to touch and look at and love and care about and not discriminate against. And with that, folks, like, share, comment, and please subscribe. And we'll see you on the next Black Popcorn.